Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Mike Brunick Show. I am excited to host a dear friend of mine and a fellow business and leadership coach, Maggie Isaac. Maggie is a focal point coach, certified, as am I. She's based out of Northern Georgia, and she's an expert on what trust can do to make or break your organization's culture. She also has an exciting new line of business that she's going to tell us about. She's going to tell us what that is here in a couple of minutes, but I'll preview. She is the founder and chief insights officer for a new product that she's developed called Practice Business Insights. So Maggie, super excited to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us today.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Mike. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. So Maggie and I met years ago. We both decided after leaving the corporate world that we were going to become leadership coaches and business coaches. And we went through a certification training program together. So Maggie and I met, gosh, it must be about 3 years ago now. Is that right?
In the trenches, yes.
In the trenches, yes. So it's been fun to follow you from afar and to see in what direction you've taken your business, Maggie. So congratulations on building a successful business.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's start from the top. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Okay. So again, my name is Maggie Isaac. I'm a business and leadership coach. I typically work with businesses that are owned by women or couples. That's kind of a new little niche that I've found. And what I do is I work with them to drive growth through their people, how they're managing their team, their operations, and very specifically through data as well.
Fantastic. And you have a bit of a specialization, as I understand it, around trust. You've been certified through David Horsacker's Trust Edge Institute, information that I'm super familiar with. And I don't have the same certifications you do. I know you've taken this even deeper than I have. Tell us a little bit about how you first discovered the Trust Edge Institute. What's the idea? What's the main idea? And how does it change the way you view leadership?
Okay, great question. So this story actually goes back a number of years. When I was in the corporate space, I was working at Michelin. And in fact, I had a couple of different exposures to the Trust Edge principles. David Horsager actually came and spoke at one of our North American leadership conferences.
Very cool. Very cool.
So I got to see him speak, and he walked through these 8 pillars, and I was like, wow, this is really impactful. It's practical. And then later on, I was actually able to do a workshop with my own team using that same framework. And it had a really deep impact on my ability to lead, things that I became aware of as a leader. But what I really enjoy about it is it's a very practical, actionable framework that can give leaders, it's not big things. It's a lot of little things that you can do daily that can impact how strong trust is in your organization.
Very cool. Very cool. And of course, there's a long history between Focal Point International, the coaching certification program you and I went through, and the Trust Edge Institute. So I'm sure that was a happy tie-in for you when you joined Focal Point and realized how deep that relationship was.
100%. Because as I was launching my coaching practice, as you were as well, you're trying to figure out like what parts and pieces do you want to include.
Yep.
And so when I saw that there was a relationship between them and that they offered that certification, I was like, sign me up. Where do I go to do this? And so yeah, going through that certification process was great because I got to see the framework now from the other side, learn a lot about the research that had gone into building the framework. And then now I'm equipped to actually deliver this to teams and organizations.
Amazing. So what do you say to those listeners who are executives, small business owners, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, who think, okay, trust sounds important, but I'm trying to solve business problems first. I don't need to do the touchy-feely stuff right now. I'm just trying to make it to the next payroll or get this product launched or survive. What do you say to those folks who feel like trust is a soft, touchy-feely thing?
I would say a lack of trust is actually your biggest expense that doesn't appear on the P&L. The data shows higher trust organizations have improved employee retention, higher employee engagement, morale, higher client retention. Those companies actually are shown to have higher revenues and higher profitability. The data also shows that those organizations with low trust lose their employees faster, they don't retain them, they're not as engaged. It takes them longer to get products to market, um, and their revenues and their profits are lower. So it's very clear. The data shows this is not a soft, touchy feely thing. This is a hardcore business thing. And companies that invest in improving that trust see those returns come back in terms of an ROI, in terms of employee engagement, in terms of client retention, and again, in terms of whether it's revenue or profitability. So there's dollar
Awesome.
signs all over it.
Awesome. So by saying that high trust organizations have positive downstream outcomes and low trust organizations have negative or less positive downstream outcomes, the implication is that there's a way to identify or even measure trust within an organization. How would an organization know if they are a low trust or a high trust organization? So can you measure trust? And if so, how?
100%. So there's a couple of different ways you can do this. I'm going to say there's quantitative ways and there's qualitative ways. Quantitatively, Trust Edge Leadership Institute gives us an assessment that we can use. There's a team assessment that the organizations that I've worked with find it super valuable and insightful to give them a perspective of which pillars are weaker, which pillars are stronger, and then through the framework, we can actually tell them what to do about it. There's also a 360 view that Trust Edge Leadership Institute has come out with. So let's say, Mike, for your business, mm-hmm. we wanted to assess you on these 8 pillars. We would give this assessment to your team. We would give this assessment to your peers, to your superiors, to your stakeholders or your clients, maybe partners that you work with, and you would get a full 360 view of these elements of trust related to you, and then we could determine where are there some opportunities. Qualitatively, it may show up in things like slower decisions, friction between teams, product launches that are just delayed, meetings that go on for longer than they need to without any decisions being made. It might be customer complaints. It might be employee engagement. So there's a lot of other ways that a lack of trust can show up, and it's almost like you see these little embers that show up. You're like, okay, these are little signals. These are smoke signals that there's a trust a challenge with trust in an organization.
Amazing. You mentioned employee retention. Tell me what happens to a high-performing employee when they're in a low-trust environment, and what happens to a high-performing employee when they're in a high-trust environment?
Yep. So a high-performing employee in a high-trust environment thrives and will give above and beyond. High-performant employee in a low-trust environment, likely will eventually disengage and leave. However, what I will say is they rarely leave because of one bad day or one incident. It's usually things over time. So team dynamics, managers that aren't clear with expectations, lack of transparency inside of an organization, lack of communication. Those are all indicators of a lack of trust, or it could even be ethics, integrity. If we start to see those kinds of things, those all tie back to trust.
And then likewise, you mentioned a downstream impact on clients or customer retention. I think we all know that happy employees make happy customers, yes. And unhappy employees make unhappy customers. We've known that for a long time. But tell me a little bit about the trust thing. How does an organization know if their clients or customers trust them? And once they know that, what can they expect from a client retention based on trust?
Yeah, so those same pillars, character, competency, consistency, contribution, those all apply on the customer facing side as well as the employee facing side. So I'm going to give you a really simple, quick example. Attorneys. Okay. I've worked with a few different attorneys,
Mhm.
and clarity is not necessarily their strong suit.
Nope.
Okay. So I'm just going to use clarity. I'm going to use clarity and consistency, right? So if I go to an attorney and I ask them, I need some help with something, how much is this going to be? Somebody that's upfront with me and says it's going to be this many hours, this hourly rate, this is an expected range. Okay, that's clear. Go to somebody else, they say it depends. Okay, what does it depends mean? That's a complete lack of clarity. I have no idea. You're not giving me anything to ground it to. Okay, consistency. Let's say I work with an attorney and they call me back within a day and they give me the answer that I need, and the next time I call them it takes them 3 weeks to call me back. Lack of consistency. I'm likely going to go find another attorney to go work with who is a little more consistent in their response. So lack of consistency is going to start to erode trust. It's like a bank account.
That's great. That's great. And client retention, customer
Mm-hmm.
retention, is important. It's important in almost every industry,
Yes.
but maybe less so in, I don't know. I sell dishwashers, and so I buy a dishwasher, and then 15 years later, I need another dishwasher. I can't even remember who I bought my dishwasher from. So some industries it's less important, but in most industries it's super important. And for those folks that have variability in how many times they serve a customer in a particular period, it becomes critically important.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about what the client retention looks like in those industries where trust is of critical importance.
Yeah, so I'm going to start off first with something that most marketers will speak about. It's significantly cheaper to retain an existing client than it is to acquire a new one. And
Sure.
so many businesses are spending significant amounts of money on marketing. I call it filling the bucket. So
Yep.
you're advertising, you're networking, you're whatever to fill that bucket of new clients. The worst thing you can do is have holes in those buckets where those clients just leave. Okay.
Mhm.
Back to our pillars. Are we clear? Are we consistent? Do we do our work with character? Um, are we showing up and actually having commitment to those clients? Um, that's going to impact their ability or their desire to stay with us or to go find another service provider that's going to do the same thing. You had mentioned there's some industries where they are highly dependent on clients returning. So one area that I've been doing work in, Mike, is in the wellness space. Okay.
Mhm.
So unlike an orthopedist, where if I break my arm and I go see the orthopedist, I don't really want to go back and they're not expecting me to come back. So
Right.
client retention there may not be as important. Okay. I may want to refer them, but they're not expecting me to come back. On the other hand, in the wellness space, so think nutritionists, dietitians, naturopaths, they want you to come back and they
Mhm.
want you to come back at some frequency. And um, one miss in terms of consistency or one miss in terms of a commitment could send me to another service provider.
Fantastic. And that's a great segue into the new line of business
Mm-hmm.
that I mentioned at the top. So, Practice Business Insights
Mm-hmm.
is a new venture that you've launched. You call yourself the Chief Insights
Yep,
Officer.
that's
Awesome
me.
title. Awesome title, Maggie. So, tell the audience a little bit about PBI
Mm-hmm.
and what it is and what it does.
Okay, so I'll also tell you about a little bit about where it was born before I can get to that. So it
Yeah.
was born out of a coaching engagement with a client who had a very specific need to understand, again, this leaky bucket. She was pouring all these new patients in on the top, and her revenue wasn't growing as fast as she wanted it to be. She also wanted to be able to manage her team better.
Mhm.
So it was born out of that. We went from a spreadsheet now to a platform that's automated. And what this allows these practice owners to do is measure their client retention so they can see where patients are dropping off in their care journey. They can assess their practitioner performance. So those who have a team and they're not interfacing with all those clients directly, they want to be able to know how those team members are doing. And then the third thing is it helps them find the holes in their bucket. So where
Mhm.
are there growth opportunities, where are their revenue gaps, and what are some really simple things that they can do to help fill, um, basically plug those leaky holes, find and plug those leaky holes in their business.
That's great. And let me pull that back, widen the scope just a little bit. I'm sure there are people listening right now that aren't in the wellness industry, but say wait a minute, client retention, team performance, and holes in my my
Holes in the
customer
bucket. Yeah.
funnel, my
Yeah.
customer funnel. You know, those are universal problems, or certainly common to lots of industries outside of wellness. So tell me how those that data would get used for somebody outside of the wellness
Okay.
industry.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. These principles really apply to many businesses and many industries, again, where you want your clients to keep returning at some
Mm-hmm.
frequency. So, for example, one of the things we're measuring is what's called a two visit conversion. So, they come once, do they come back a second time? What percent of patients are coming back a second time? And then we're able to slice that based on who saw them. So again, doesn't necessarily have to be in the wellness space. There's a number of other industries where you want somebody to come back for a second visit, a second appointment. Are you measuring that? Do you know that number? Do you know that percentage? And then for the ones that aren't coming back, do you know why? And do you know who in your team saw them? And what can you do to coach those team members to encourage them, whether to proactively book a second appointment, or what else can they do to reach out to that client and have them return for a second visit? So that's one example.
Sure.
Another example, again, same kind of space. Um, when clients are completing maybe a care journey, or there's a step of things that they want need to be completed. How many visits do they need in so many days? And so one thing that the tool does, for example, is give these practitioners a window into what's called 5 visits in 90 days. That's considered a client is retained. Okay, it's one metric that we're using. And so not only are we giving them a rear facing view of that metric, we're giving them a forward facing view of new patients as they're coming in, how many visits are pre booked, so they can be much more proactive at identifying where might there be a retention issue in the future, and how can I plug that hole before it actually becomes a hole. So, thinking more broadly, again, using that data to look forward and identify where might there be a gap, where might there be an opportunity, to retain those clients, as opposed to them quietly leave and you not notice until, oh my gosh, they left 2 months ago and I didn't even notice. So that's really the key, is to help them get out in front of it.
Amazing. I know in my work as a business and leadership coach, we start talking about pulling levers and turning dials in people's businesses. It almost always comes down to data, and data is almost always viewed best through a dashboard. So, is Practice Business Insights, is that ultimately at the end of the day a dashboard that shows people the critical areas in their business?
Yep. It's ultimately a very easy to use dashboard with a handful of tabs. There are some just indicators, and then there's also what's called action items. So it actually tells them who to talk to, when did they fall off in the care journey, who the practitioner was that saw them. They can use this to coach the team. They can use this in a team meeting to actually assess performance across their entire business. And as a practice owner, they can really get a handle on what their numbers are and what to do about it.
Amazing. So, bringing all this together, a typical engagement for you is to go in and make sure people understand trust, teach people how to measure trust,
Yep.
and then help them identify those markers, those metrics, those needles that should be moving as they
Yes.
work to improve trust. Is that a good summary?
100%. 100%. And the data may be different depending on the business. It might be employee data. We might be looking more at employee
Mm-hmm.
data. We might be looking at client data. But really healthy businesses do well by using trust to retain clients and retain their employees.
All amazing, Maggie, and really excited for these ideas to get percolated down to the folks listening. If somebody wanted to engage with you, how would they get in touch with you?
Probably the easiest place is on LinkedIn. So look me up, Maggie Isaac, Ishak. And we now have a brand new page for Practice Business Insights. You can get to it
Nice.
from my profile or you can find the company page. And we also have a website, practicebusinessinsights.com.
Amazing. Maggie, spell your last name one more time, please.
Sure. So it's Isaac, Ishak.
And I asked Maggie to spell it because when I first met Maggie, I said it like it's spelled, which is Ishak. And I'm sure people say that all the time,
All the time.
but if they're looking for you, they have to spell it right.
Yeah.
So Maggie Isaac, Ishak. Maggie, it's been a pleasure. It's been great seeing you again after all these years.
Likewise.
And I am
Thank you for
so
having me.
yeah, this has been fun, and I am so excited for what you've built and the work that you're doing for both women-owned businesses and couple-owned businesses.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
Thanks, Maggie.